Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Turf Today, brought to you by Toro. My name is Adam Kershane, and as always, I'm joined by Brian Laurent. And everybody, today we have number 88 with a giant media personality in the golf world. Matt Ginella joins us from San Diego, California, and not only is he a journalist and a father, he is a fantastic storyteller. Brian and I were taken away and captivated this entire episode, this entire interview. Literally just put this on, sit back, relax, and let Matt take you away. And to be honest with you, when we have people like this on, there's no messing around. Let's get right into it.
Figured you'd have the whole podcast set up. You're no rookie to this stuff.
He's a professional. He knows what he's doing.
Is this okay? Does this sound okay?
Oh,
yeah, it's great.
Perfect.
Okay,
absolutely. Cool. Appreciate you joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Is that a lakeside hat? What are you rocking there?
It's Laura Loma. It's
Laura Loma.
David Kidd's new course in the hill country of Texas.
Oh, nice.
Ooh. Yeah. Big part of what I'm doing now, if I were to break out the pie chart of the business, is working with these high-end developments that are building Core Crenshaw in at the base of the Crazy Mountains, about an hour outside of Bozeman. So documenting the build of that from start to finish, documenting the Laura Loma build in Hill Country with David Kidd. Just got contracted to do Coral Mountain, another David Kidd course, which will be in Palm Springs, Coachella Valley. And, I think these marketing branches and sales departments and developers see value in documenting that dirt to reality, right? To dirt to fairway, essentially. And then also, so creating that breadcrumb of content that leads into the finished product, and being able to show that transformation of a piece of land that then becomes this sort of work in progress and then becomes a finished product.
Yeah. No, absolutely. There is showing those investors and the members and everyone what's going on at these facilities and showing it become a reality is definitely important. Definitely a great selling tool for people. So absolutely. That's awesome.
Yeah. And that's kind of piggybacked on that restoration stuff that like the Paso Tiempo and the Golden Gate Park and stuff. So
yeah, that's awesome. So why don't you tell us a little bit, Matt, how you got into this crazy game of golf and made your way onto the media side of things here?
Go back to, I grew up in Northern California and was always around golf. My uncle, Uncle Tony is the real, sort of connection to the game, but there are others. My dad was always a golf enthusiast, but he was the prototypical play once or twice a month, always at a 22 handicap. He loved it, but he was never really that good at it. He really could putt. He could putt. But the rest of his game was more spiritual, like he was just, he was the guy that rolled up to the first tee, slammed the brakes on the cart, he was the guy, hey, what's going on, and he would call out the sandbagger. He was the guy who would poke people's, you're a fucking sandbagger, I mean, that's my dad. Meanwhile, my uncle came from more of the, he was a scratch at 18, probably could have played pro, but at that time there wasn't any money in it. The kid in my neighborhood that got into it, that got me into it, because you kind of needed that friend that got into it, a kid by the name of Matt Cohen. My first round was at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds, a little 9-hole short course within the framework of the racetrack, right within the infield of the racetrack. Probably paid, I don't know, 50 cents or $1 to play at that point. And that course is still there. And then, I rode horses and did all the other sports golf was just a thing I would do occasionally. It wasn't until senior year in high school, I was getting out of horses for a variety of reasons, got into golf. At that time, most high school teams had two or three good players, but they were scraping to fill out teams. We're talking about, late 80s, first 1990. So at that time, my uncle was also willing to sort of cultivate me into the game because I was at an age where he could finally bring me around his buddies. I wasn't just the kid, so, and I worked at golf courses. So that was another thing. As soon as I was able to drive, even before driving, I was parking carts, picking ranges. The maintenance aspect of it became a real love of mine and interest of mine right around senior year of high school and then all through college. So I all summers I started working. The head pro at Oakmont Golf Course in Santa Rosa was a bit of a dick. The superintendent, shockingly, not shockingly to anybody who knows, head pro was a dick, and the superintendent was an amazing human being. You know what I mean? So I gravitated towards working for him, a guy by the name of Mike Clark, who just was the sweetest, most hardworking, kind-souled, selfless, underappreciated, overachieving, classic superintendent. Checked all the boxes. And he brought me under his wing and I loved mowing green. Like I loved mowing I loved striping. I loved all of that. There was just, and again, I've said this many times, if I didn't get into the media side of things, I was going to be a superintendent. I was pathing towards that. And in fact, I moved to New York out of college. I had done a bunch of radio work in college. So my two loves were broadcasting and, maintenance, working in the agronomy crews. That was my parallel path. And it came to that sliding doors moment when I had gotten an internship at Sports Illustrated after carrying cameras for them through college. So college was playing golf, broadcasting, working at home on the summers for Oakmont Golf Course superintendent's crew, maintenance crew. There came a moment in time where I got an internship at Sports Illustrated that ultimately led to a job. While I was interning at SI, I was looking into Penn State's agronomy school. And in fact, Mike Clark at Oakmont was helping me navigate that. So I had the packet of material to fill out, and I got the job at Sports Illustrated. And I was like, I got to go this way, which then led to getting a master's in journalism at Columbia, and then led to Golf Digest, and then writing, and then broadcasting at Golf Channel. But never lost that love or soft spot and appreciation for the agronomists and the superintendents and the maintenance crews and all that goes into that. So,
Turf Today is brought to you by Toro. If good things come in threes, Toro is nailing it because they're focused on the three big areas that everybody is talking about: alternative power, autonomous technology, and smart digital tools. Toro has battery-powered mowers that can run all day long. Their GeoLink technology makes spraying so accurate, there's virtually no overlap. And their IntelliDash platform makes it easy to track course conditions in real time. Want to see what's next? Follow Toro on Instagram and on X, and know that Toro is always solving and always evolving. Well, Matt, I would just love to ask you about, first starting to work on the golf course, leaving the pro shop or the back shop and actually starting to work on the course. What were some of the things that kind of drew you to that, other than, an amazing human being as a superintendent, but some of the things about the job that sort of drew you in?
I loved getting up early. I loved sunrise. Like I loved the idea that you could get out there, work early, get it done. We were done at 2:00, and then we could go play golf in the afternoon. I also saw that the superintendent didn't finish at 2:00. Mike Clark worked sunrise to sunset, and in most cases, well before sunrise. That idea of driving the machinery out of the shed with the headlights on, that if that doesn't move you, you're not, it's not for you, right? If that lineup, if that parade of machinery coming out of the maintenance shed with lights on before sunrise doesn't get you going, then don't do that job. You know what I mean? That got me going. I love that stuff. And it was about I mean, I love doing work in my own yard. I grew up I think it's either in you, that sort of green thumby thing where you love taking something that's not looking so good or covered in leaves or overgrown and peeling it back and shining it up and polishing it off. And that felt good to me. That always feels good to me. Still does, always will. So it's either in you or it's not.
Do you think that that background and having some experience on the maintenance side when you were covering the game of golf, do you think that little bit of knowledge helped you be better at what you were doing from a broadcasting perspective to kind of tell the story of the golf courses and how they're handling a golf course?
Absolutely, without question. Just a, it's, it's just an enriched education. I say this all the time. People who are in and around the game are either golfers or people who play golf. Big difference, right? Like I say this about people who do TV. You're either, you're people who happen to do TV or you're a TV person. A TV person is like a cartoon character. They just never, it never turns off for them. But people who do TV are, the Tom Ferducci's are like, Bob Costas is like a TV person. He's a cartoon character. Tom Verducci is a person who loves baseball, who does TV. You know what I mean? I think golfers are people who were born in the game, that learned it as a kid, who worked in and around the game as a kid, and just understand and appreciate layers and layers of the language, and the culture and the soul of the game. And then there are people who have just found the game late in life. They learned the swing when they were in their 40s. All good. I'm not disparaging. No, it's just a big difference. It's a fundamental difference. And to come to cover the game or follow the game or talk about the game or do stories about the game or features about the game, even if it wasn't about agronomists or superintendents or the conditioning of the golf course, it always factored because it's at the base of everything. The presentation of the golf course, whether that's me doing travel or assessing the experience, how that venue is presented is massive aspect of the experience itself. And the idea that you don't even mostly see the people who do all that.
Yeah, yeah, in the shadows.
It's behind the curtain. When the
Yeah,
curtain opened at the Johnny Carson show or the Tonight Show or all those people who are working their asses off to present that show. That's what the maintenance crew is. And I think an appreciation or understanding of all of that, of course it matters. Of course it matters in everything we do or say or assess or.
On our side of things, we're fortunate to have people like you to be able to kind of bridge that gap between just golf and what's actually happening on the golf course. Through your career, have you seen that kind of getting closer and kind of getting better?
Of course, of course. It had nowhere to go but up, right? I
True.
mean,
yeah,
True.
inherently, at the core, and we've already sort of talked about at the core of what it is to be a superintendent or be part of the maintenance crew is a selflessness, is a willingness to be not front and center, not get the credit, not pound the chest, not look at me, look at me. It's the opposite. So, and in many cases, as you guys know, superintendents aren't great communicators. They don't. Not only do they not communicate well, they're not extroverts, right? At the core of who you are. It's not to say that it's true in every case, obviously, but in most cases, superintendents are very willing to let the head pro or director of golf or the GM or whatever. And that's why sometimes when superintendents get into those positions, it's not always a great fit. It's almost like the Peter principle. They get elevated into places where they're not actually serving the club in the best way. They're agronomists. They should be focused on the agronomy and the presentation of the venue and let those talkers or marketers or sellers do that. You know what I mean? Because those skill sets don't always, translate into their other aspects of the business. But that being said, I think over time, I think there are a lot of superintendents, and through social media, have found a voice, found a platform to articulate that voice, and I think it's definitely, and I think there's, I hope, I would like to think that if I were to look back on my career and what I've used, what I've done with my platform is to try to shine a light on how or why they matter, why it matters, um, because because I think I was passionate about it then and always will be. You know what I mean? Like I just think that's you know I'm sure we're going to talk about it, but Pasatiempo, Justin Mandan, and Jim Urbina is going to get a lot of the credit, and Earth Sculpture is getting a lot of credit for the work that was put into that incredible restoration of a top 100 golf course and an Alistair McKenzie course that people can still play. But Justin Mandan, none of that happens without Justin Mandan, who he's just not a guy who's going around beating his chest and saying, "Look at me, look at me." He's very comfortable and happy being this guy who gets up real early and stays real late and makes it happen. His communication with his membership, the board, the leadership of Pasatiempo was critical to getting that done. And he's going to get a lot of credit. Ultimately, I'm going to make sure of it, but I think a lot of people, so other people will too. But that's a classic case of a guy who is never going to get enough credit for all the things he's done to make sure that that place is not only as good as it is today, but it will be as good as it should be for the next 100 years.
A couple things I want to touch on there. First, I want to go back to your statement. I agree 100%. I think a lot of superintendents get into that side of the business because they're not the extroverts. They're not out there pumping their own chests. They're not doing that stuff. But do you think there are several ways, or do you think there are other ways that superintendents can better promote themselves and tell stories? You mentioned Twitter, and I know you've probably developed a lot of relationships with superintendents via social media and stuff like that. But what are some of the things that these guys can do or should be doing in order to shine a light on the things that they are accomplishing in order to present these golf courses?
Well, if it's not them, right? In many cases, they're so busy. The last thing they want to do is take their eye off the ball and start an Instagram handle and start posting every day, or and it's probably not their interest or strength. Now, if it is, and they can find the time and make it work, hey, do it. Start
Yeah.
a handle, post regularly, and even if it's only your membership or your clientele, your base clientele that's following, that's all. That's really what matters, right? But my suggestion would be there's probably somebody on your crew who has an interest in not only doing the work, on the course, so to speak, but also telling the story of the work that's being done in and around the course, best practices, communicating with the membership. So if and I think a lot of these young superintendents, as we know, there's a high demand for this, this aspect of the industry. So there are a lot of young first assistants or second assistants or superintendents, for that matter, they may have the bandwidth to do it. But I think in any case with this stuff, it's all about understanding who is your core clientele, who's your follower, and then how can you be consistent in delivering small chunks of quality content that is of interest to them, and just rinse and
Yeah.
repeat. And if they're not good at communicating face to face, maybe this is a way in which they are better at trying to get the word out and and properly, explain what's being done, why it's being done, why they need a little more of this, whether it's money or resources. I think that can go a long way, right? Any way you can try to get at people, because a lot of times they don't get face to face time with the leadership or the people who matter, the decision makers. So, you know, a lot of people have figured it out. A lot of people utilize the platforms. That's the other thing is the superintendents is such a beautiful network and fraternity or sorority of people who are trying to help each other. So if you look around and you say, oh, not only is my neighboring course doing that really well with the grass or the seed that they're utilizing or how they, but what about how they're utilizing the social platforms to better communicate? So I love the fact that that superintendents and maintenance crews are so close, cooperative, communicate with each other, support each other. Something happens, big storm hits, a portion of their equipment goes down. The sharing of resources and information and best practices is phenomenal. And I think that's probably already happening as it relates to social media and communication.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's the one thing every time I talk to young students or anything, make sure you're in control of your story. And that's it. You talked about knowing your audience and all that kind of stuff. Because if we're not telling our own story, or if superintendents aren't telling their own story, then it's whoever's behind the counter in the pro shop, or it's the members, sitting around grabbing a beer after they play around, that they're going to be gossiping and telling the story. So no, it's nice to have those platforms and those tools to be able to do it. But I wanted to also go back. You mentioned the Pasa Tiempo and project, and can't wait for people to see it. It's phenomenal. And I know you're doing a couple other projects. Are there some things, the more you're involved in these renovations and new builds and interacting with these directors of agronomy that are kind of spearheading some of these projects, are you learning new things on a regular basis the more you go out there and potentially seeing the game from a different lens, even though you do have some agronomy background as well?
Absolutely. And that's kind of part of what I love also, right? I think at the core of who I am as part of being a journalist, but just you know, I'm curious, right? Like
Yeah.
I would imagine you guys probably have that curiosity too. Otherwise, you wouldn't be doing what you're doing, right? Just a
Yeah.
baseline curiosity about life.
Yeah.
So I have that, and to have been embedded in the 2+ year process of Pasa Tiempo, being immersed in that world, listening in, watching sod come in and get down, and that's bad sod. That this needs to get and watching those, what seed are you using, what hybrids of this grass are you using, why are you using that? The water, right? So sustainability and what grasses are being developed that need a little less water and how that impacts the bottom line and the budgets and things like runoff and sand splash. To watch Pasatiempo go down 16 inches off of what the greens were 2 years ago, and to reestablish that that baseline of what is now the putting surface, and to look at that archaeological dig over time and watch how what was being done in the early 1900s compared to what's being done now in 2025, and top dressing where it was being done and the decades it was being done and how that impacted where they were at, which is very little pinnable locations. If you think, I had never thought of sand splash and how over time a green side bunker with someone hitting out of a bunker over and over and over and over again, decades and decades, how that will flare up that you don't
Yeah,
think about
yeah,
it. And then
right.
they do the plugs, they do the coring down, and they show you, even just looking at the sprinkler heads and seeing how the land is moving up around the sprinkler heads, and you're like, of course that's happening, but you don't think about it.
Right, right.
For people to say, "Oh, I can't believe Pasatiempo's touching those Alistair McKenzie greens." Are you shitting me? Those haven't been Alistair McKenzie greens since 1945. I mean, it's not even close. Those have been done and dusted
Yeah,
forever.
yeah. Oh, that's crazy.
It is a fun education, and I appreciate people like Justin Mandan, sort of being patient and willing to sort of share. Josh Lewis is a guy I work with on Golden Gate Park. He's been
Yeah,
part of the positive. He's a turf guy, right? He's an
yeah.
agronomy guy. He helps me learn about, and then the architects themselves, the Jay Blasies and the David Kids and some of the people they work with. You learn about all of this stuff, and it's fascinating. I love it.
When you talk about a change over time and some of the courses and stuff and seeing some of these renovations, talk about some of the tech that has come a long way and some of the changes you're seeing that guys are using out on the course.
Yeah, I mean that the drones and the understanding of what needs water and what doesn't, being able to read the moistures of the greens and of any turf, being able to understand. I remember I did a whole water feature, and at that time, Poppy Hills was implementing the use of sort of more technology, being able to spot water different things. You think about what the way we used to do it, 25 years ago, 30 years ago. It was just like turn sprinklers on X amount of time, just, and then there'd be some, wet spot. Okay, just water that area a little less. But you're chasing it, right? Technology is now you're right on top of it. It's not reactionary. It's proactive, a sense of water and fertilizers and different grasses and different air. I mean, and I know nothing about nothing, so I'm not going to try to pretend to tell you guys. But but my sense is it's revolutionary to the bottom line. And unfortunately, what clubs and courses do is they just keep pinching off the bottom line budget of the agronomy itself instead of trying to make it all so much better. They're just moving that over into other aspects of the game, and that's therein lies the rub. Like the good news is we found something that's going to save us a bunch of money. Okay, we're going to take that out of your budget and put it over into some other budget instead of saying, oh, we're going to give you more resources to even make things even look better. That's the good superintendent is the one who finds out that they've got things that are going to help the bottom line, but doesn't actually articulate it up to the leadership to say so they don't lose
Find a way
that
to hide
money.
it.
Yeah, find a way to hide it and move it over and figure out ways to utilize the presentation of the product so that they can stay appreciated and keep their jobs.
Yeah. So you're big on storytelling, and I love storytelling as well. You're much more of a professional at it than I am, and Adam and I are. But I just want to know, like, what's so meaningful about storytelling for you?
Well, everything I do, I it comes down to three things, inform, inspire, entertain. And informing means to try to help people, be smarter about the world they live in. So, first and foremost, everything I put out, I want to try to make you smarter, inspire you to go and see or do it for yourself, right? I think there's no greater education than travel, moving around the world we live in. So, if I can inspire you to get up and go see it or do some more research on it, I've got countless numbers of DMs or messages over the years because you said this, I did this, and I just want to say thank you because now that changed that means something to me. That now we do it every year. Now we go there every year. Now we've seen, that to me is everything. Those messages that I've received that say that something to that effect is, I don't know, I can't put it's not money. I'm not getting paid. They're not, they're not sending me a check. But there would be no value I could put on something like that. That means everything to me. So inform, inspire, and then if I can make you laugh or cry or do both, move you emotionally, make you feel something. Why do stand-up comics do what they do? Why do actors and actresses do what they do? Why do musicians do what they do? Why do entertainers? I don't know. Is it because of that front row and that react of the people? Is it the people who go and buy tickets to a movie? I don't know why those people do what they do. I just know that if someone again sends me a message that says, oh wow, that really impacted me, or they donated to something because it's a cause that I'm telling a story about, or I don't know, that matters to me too. So inform, inspire, entertain is at the core of why I love telling stories. I come from a family of storytellers. I would say it's in my DNA. My grandfather was in original Hollywood and part of movie making and story. My uncle Tony was a great storyteller. He could hold a room and captivate an audience and make people, laugh, and that's I love that.
A-Plus rewards are back. The Andersons A-Plus rewards program offers turf managers the best opportunity to save on our newest and most popular products this fall. Earn rewards on purchases of Contec DG, Voltec SG, Castaway DG, Carbon Coat, and more. Don't miss this opportunity. The average reward for last year's program, more than $250. For a complete list of qualifying products, visit andersonspro.com. Offer available to U.S. customers only.
That's awesome. That's the mission for Superintendent Network is it's everything I will put out needs to be epic. Educate, promote, inspire, and connect. So I love you've got those three core elements that you try and do every time. So you're, along with the storytelling, you're a community guy too. Talk a little bit about what you're doing with Fire Pit, some of the bonfires, and just some of the things you're doing to kind of bring people together.
Yeah, I this is so. Let's go back to 2019. It was kind of my last year on the Golf Channel, and I saw some inefficiencies in the marketplace, right, in terms of what I was doing. And I say this all the time, but I'd go out and shoot for 5 days, sunrise to sunset. Myself and my crew would work our asses off and come back, and we would present a 5-minute or a 12-minute feature on that destination. We would, I would say, we'd kill the cow and we'd only eat the fillet, and it'd be like everything else would go to waste. And that was a bit soul crushing to me. I get it. You got a broadcast, you're putting on a show, there's only so much room for so much content before they got to move on to the next. So it's not linear TV as it was and as it is. There's guardrails and restrictions, right? For me, I wanted this Pasatiempo thing that we're about to drop. It's like 30 minutes of content. If it was going to go on Golf Channel, they'd want it 3 minutes long.
Right.
And now, are you going to get the story? Yeah, you're going to get the essence of the story in 3 minutes. But are you going to get the story? No, you're not. So I started my production company in February of 2020 with the idea that I was going to go out and strip away the guardrails, partner with distribution outlets, try to find ways that I could control my content a little more, the presentation of my content. It would be like a superintendent preparing 18 holes every day, but people only play 3 of those holes. How to what point would the superintendent eventually be like, "Ugh, why am I doing these other 15 holes when only people are playing those three?"
Yeah.
I'm sure there's an aspect of Sawgrass where, 16, 17, 18 gets all the eyeballs. But the superintendent's got to be like, "Are we ever going to show the first 15 holes? There's some really good golf holes that, you know what I mean?" Like,
Yeah.
so for me, I started the production company with the idea that I wanted to be able to present all 18 holes. And if someone wanted to play all 18, great. If somebody just wanted to play 16, 17, 18, then they can have that too. I wanted long, medium, short, read, watch, listen. Let me put it out every way possible. That was February of 2020. March of 2020, COVID hits. So I pivot out of this production company, which was originally called Dawn Patrol Productions. And I had, I'm travel and lifestyle and no one's moving around. All of a sudden I was like, shit, now what? At that time, I started partnering with people like Alan Shipnuck. I got just enough money invested to get it going, not enough to get it all the way, all the ways to see it through. I made a bunch of mistakes along that way, got too big too fast. We dropped the Phil book on Fire Pit Collective, which was the name of the media company, right out of the gates, and that went globally viral. Well, we didn't have a Phil book every 2 weeks. You know what I mean? We had good storytellers and good content creators, and we had a really good team of people. We just probably should have gotten there a little more incrementally. And but I think where I was in my life and my career, and people like where Alan was in his life and his career, we just put the pedal down, and we tried to make it, tried to make it work, and it didn't. And so it took me a long time to peel that all apart, and probably put too much into it than I should have at the back end. But I felt like I owed it to the investors, and as of middle of last year, I really pivoted out of the media company and went back to the production company model. So Fire Pit Collective became Fire Pit Productions, and no more overhead, no more employees, only contracted partners with shooters and editors. And and I also realized that the only thing that was really drawing interest in making money was the vertical around documenting courses, builds, restorations. The travel and lifestyle has been coming back online. As 2 years of COVID, people weren't moving around. And then the 2 years after COVID, everybody was moving around. So there
Yeah.
wasn't any need to try to sell, beds and tea times because those were full.
Yep.
So it's only just now coming back around. And I think as it relates to Fire Pit Productions and what I'm doing now and how I'm doing it and creating events on the back end of those production models. So do the Pasta Tempo restoration, have an event at Pasta Tiempo, bring in Jim Urbina, show the content, have people have a great experience, bring in some sponsors and partners, rinse and repeat on that. Hopefully have an event at Laura Loma, hopefully have an event at Gamble Sands, in July. So things that I'm doing with these destinations or these courses then leads into an event where I bring in the architect and superintendent and we have good conversation. And I've been hosting an Uncle Tony Invitational in honor of my uncle who got me really sort of deep into the game at Bandon Dunes for, upwards of like 15 years. These events that I'm having, we call it a bonfire. We're going to also announce a cool partnership here in the next week or two with a brand that I'm really excited about, and they're gonna partner on the presentation of these events, but they're going to be like big Uncle Tony Invitationals, teams of two,
Awesome.
best ball of the twosome, a little bit of competition, a lot of camaraderie, and that's where I'm at.
That's awesome. I'm kind of curious to know, you mentioned the evolution, not only of just your company, but then golf and filling the beds at some of these resorts and now the construction and all that. Do you see this construction phase? I honestly, personally, have been around this game my entire life, and aside from maybe the 90s boom, I don't recall anything like what's going on right now with the number of renovations and new builds and all that kind of stuff. How do you see this panning out over the next couple of years, 5, 10 years down the road? Do you see the continued growth of the game of golf, or do you think it's going to level out here at some point?
I mean, I think I'd be crazy to say that it's going to keep going at this rate.
Yeah.
There's just that just doesn't seem realistic. I think it is a beautiful game, as we know, and for a lot of reasons, I think it's completely ironic that as men's professional golf is literally like imploding and just dysfunctional and dumpster fire. You throw any derogatory terminology around whatever the hell is being presented as men's professional golf. It's just an absolute shit show. And my level of interest, the nose of the plane is pointed at the ground as it relates to men's professional golf. Has it already hit? I don't know, but it's a shit show, not sustainable. We could go on and on. It's a whole separate podcast. Ironically, the people who pay to play the game, you can't, it's the opposite, right? It's a rocket ship. It's going in another direction. So neither one is actually legitimately sustainable in either direction. And hopefully men's professional golf figures it out. I don't really give a shit. I hope it does because I do love the game, but I don't really give a shit. What I do care about is this health and wellness of the game. And I've thought a lot about this, and we think about the Tiger Woods tsunami that he brought into the game in the 90s and early 2000s, and the game wasn't ready, right? We told people, no, you got to wear this, can't do that. It was too hard, took too long, too expensive, et cetera, et cetera. Now we have grow the game initiatives. We have a renaissance of municipalities. We have Top Golf, and we have simulator golf, and we have, a fairly more affordable, things like Youth on Course. I sat on the board for Youth on Course for 4 years. I'm now a chief storyteller for them. I mean, kids playing for $5 or less, subsidized rounds of golf for kids, and what that does to make sure that kids are coming to the game, whether that's drive, chip, and putt or PGA Junior Leagues or First Tee or whatever, actually can afford to play the game after they get interested in it is amazing. So we have such a healthier, COVID brought another tsunami of interest into the game, a byproduct of a global disaster that no one saw coming. And we have a healthier, a more sustainable presentation of what is the game as it relates to people who pay to play it. That being said, to your point, this, it's totally out of control, the development of new courses. I think if the low end is always going to be popular and important, Goat Hill Park, Winter Park 9, Butler Park Pitch and Putt, go on and on, Golden Gate Park, on and on and on. That's the feeder system. That's bunny slope stuff. You got to have it. And then the high end is always going to be the best of the best, right? So Pebble's not going anywhere. Augusta National's not going anywhere. Bandon Dunes is not going anywhere. They're going to be amazing. Whatever in between the bottom 10% and the top 10%, that 80% in the middle, you better be good. You better make sense. You better be value. You better have a healthy leadership, a good leadership and a healthy business model. You better have a product and a presentation of that product that keeps people wanting to come back for more. So let's say there's another 10% on the top end of the top side, and there's another 10% on the bottom side that fit that bill, right? So now you're talking about 40%, 20 on the bottom, 20 on the top. That middle 60%, I'd be worried. If you're not unique, if you don't have a good business model, if you haven't reinvested into your product in the last 5 or 10 years with new greens, new irrigation, with moving bunkers around, making it more playable, more fun, more sustainable, if you haven't built that new maintenance shed and got new equipment, if you just took the money and pocketed it or put it into areas that doesn't make sense, your time's coming. You're going to pay the price.
Great perspective. I like it.
And then, Adam, it's going to be like, do you have enough to dig your way out of that mess that you've created? Because, because it's a buyer's market right now. We have so many places to choose from. We have so many options and opportunities to do it. Like, there's not a day that goes by that Goat Hill Park doesn't get better. There's not a day. They're working on the eighth tee and like John Ashworth isn't pocketing the money for what he's done at Goat Hill Park. He's putting it back into this community asset. And that's why people are flooding to the place. It's packed. He redid the range, built a kids course, added 3 holes, he has done something to every hole every day.
And he's not just putting the money into it. You'll see him out there pulling weeds and just doing stuff with the guys.
He's got blisters on his hands right now that shows you. If you're not that guy, if you're the asshole going off to Hawaii and taking all the money and more vacations for you, like, okay, but your time's coming. That alarm's going to go off and shit's going to hit the fan because you think this is really realistic at this rate. It's not.
So you mentioned Goat Hill. Talk about how you got involved in the project and just your relationship with Goat Hill.
I have nothing to do with Goat Hill Park except for John Ashworth is like a brother to me.
Okay.
I've been covering he called me at one point, I don't know, it's almost 15 years ago now, and said, "Hey man, I'm doing a 100-hole hike on this golf course. It's in trouble. It's on death's doorstep. They're talking about selling. City of Oceanside might sell it and churn it up and turn it into, I don't know, soccer fields or a stadium of some sort. I don't know. There was a big investor who saw an opportunity. The land was going to be sold by the City of Oceanside. But before they could do that in the bylaws of the city, they had to have a city council meeting, and it had to sort of not be wanting to be a golf course anymore. Like they were going to put it out to the people. Mm-hmm. And John lined up 60 to 80 people who showed up at that city council meeting, one after the other. They peppered the city council and the other investor who was present by saying, no, this needs to stay a golf course. And so the city gave them the keys to it and said, all right, you want it? Take it. We'll give you, I think he's got a 50-year lease or some 30-year lease, something insane. And, as he said, I came home and said, honey, I bought the zoo. Well, I as a Golf Channel guy and friend of John Ashworth, who grew up, idolizing the brand and then got to know the man behind the brand and idolized him as a human being. And I don't know how to explain him. There's an angelic kind of spiritual sense about him. He's not in it for him. He's in it for the greater good of the community. And I don't know, that's something pretty cool about that. Just take that,
100%.
Oh my God.
You don't see that a whole lot.
Wow. If anybody was in men's professional golf, actually gave a shit about what it looks like 30 years from now, as opposed to 3 days from now, it might have a chance of solving the problem, right? If someone's actually in it for the greater good, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So anything and everything I've ever been able to do to support him, utilizing my platform, storytelling, documenting, shining a light on, what he's doing and how he's doing it and who he's doing it with and why he's doing it at the Junior Caddy Leadership Academy and the Lee twins, who just got Evans scholarships coming out of that Junior Caddy and Leadership Academy. Daughters of a Vietnamese refugee who, they're essentially the first kids from their family who are going to college on a full ride because they caddied at Goat Hill Park in the Junior Caddy and Leadership Academy. I mean, as a storyteller, as someone, I want to feed my family and put a roof over their head, but I don't really, I wish I cared about money more. I just want to tell those stories. I don't really give a shit about, again, I want to make money, and there are aspects of what I do that is business. But anything and everything John does in Goat Hill Park and Wishbone Brawls and documenting the development of this underachieving community asset that is now thriving and surviving, and it's where I'm now raising my son. So selfishly, I've got a vested interest in what's going on out there because it's good for me and my mental health and soul to be a part of this community. It's good for my family because it literally is a place that I can bring my kid there, and just like central casting of municipal golf going back to 70s, 80s, this is the heartbeat of this community. And it's where kids can go and be safe and get off their devices and get exercise. There's generational connectivity happening out there. The optics of this are, T-shirts and dogs and kids and community. And, a lot of people show up and don't even play golf. They're just there to hang out. It's a park mentality where you happen to play golf. So my involvement is doing whatever John needs me to do. I just got put on the championship committee, the competition committee. I did my first meeting this week. That was an honor.
That's awesome.
I'm gonna help them. There's a good group of people. We meet in the back. It was just the little, back area of the pro shop, and it's everything. And it's similar to what I had at Winter Park when, if you're living in a community and you're not part of that community course, I feel sorry for you. I feel like you're missing something.
Yeah, there's no better example of what community can do than Goat Hill. I mean, I remember one time visiting with my wife, and we didn't even play golf. We just went over and hung out, mandatory golf Friday, and there's 100 people sitting on the back patio around the fire pit and all that kind of stuff, just hanging out. There's absolutely nothing better. So much fun.
I'm so happy and lucky to call it home. And It's $35 golf course. I've actually never been a member of a club. I've never been a member of a private club.
Well, you're the world's guest now, though, Matt. I mean, you get to go
I don't need
play.
to, I appreciate that, and I get that, and I don't take that for granted. And I've been able to see and do a lot of things. But if you took Goat Hill Park and then Winter Park 9 out of my life prior to that, or Oakmont Golf Course as a kid out of my life, Bennett Valley Golf Course, or, Bethpage for that matter, back in Bethpage, before Bethpage became really what it was. And when I was living in New York, I'd go to Bethpage a lot. Montauk Downs. If you took all my municipal experiences out of my life, I just don't know. I'd have nothing. I don't know what that, I'd be an asshole. You know what I mean? Because those things shape you and allow you to be, be well-rounded when it comes to golf, to be more empathetic and understanding of, just like we talk about superintendents. If you don't know that aspect of the industry, you might be an asshole.
Turf Today is also brought to you by Flash Weather AI. And if you haven't gone to our link in bio on Instagram to get the free trial of this platform, you guys definitely need to check it out. These guys have amazing weather updates on this app, and one of the best parts about it is the lightning strike detection. They can detect lightning from miles or kilometers away, depending on where you are. go to our link tree and our link in bio on Instagram at Turf Today, and you guys will be able to get a free trial from Flash Weather AI.
I'm glad you mentioned some of those comparisons because, with your experience in being around those operations from the municipal level where they're just working on a shoestring budget versus the top end, what do you think maybe some of those top end guys could learn from the municipals that are really just kind of scraping by?
Well, that scrappy nature of like getting it done, not having the resources, but figuring it out. Figuring out what needs to be watered, what needs to be mowed, what's critical to the presentation before you start getting the backlash of like, oh my God, this, if you go to Goat Hill Park, the greens are tight.
Yeah.
And if, as long as they keep those greens tight, people overlook the little scrubbiness or scrappiness over there. Now, again, he's fixing all those. He can't help himself. He fixes all the one at a time. He's going slowly but surely. And then, taking the time and having patience to do projects one piece at a time instead of, I need to do it all at once. I need to do going one hole at a time, going one tee at a time, going one, fairway at a time, or going one cart path at a time. You could learn how to do that. I mean, I would imagine some of the top people in the industry have had some of those experiences, which is why they're top people in the industry. I don't know. But just being able to, look at what Justin Manning had to do to get where he is now. He had to figure out water. They had no water. That golf course was borderline death. Very famously got published in Golf Digest, and it was like, oh my God, talking about a top 100 course, Allison McKenzie. Talking about death's doorstep. They didn't have water. And Scott Hoyt, the general manager at the time, and Justin Manning, eventually did a deal with Scotts Valley. And meanwhile, he was digging and trying to find another, diversify the portfolio of their water sources. But that was critical. You don't think he doesn't think about that time every day? Now, having just come off a 2-year restoration of the greens and having the place look like what it is now, I mean, that's going to affect him forever. Being, having to scrape and claw and figure out and find ways to make ends meet, water just the greens and nothing else. I mean, that's an education that I don't think he'll ever be able to put a price tag on.
Oh, Matt, you talked about a few courses that were kind of special to you. I wanted to put you on the spot here a little bit just because you are such a world traveler. Two-part question: favorite country you visited, and second question is favorite golf property you have visited.
Let me take the first one, which I'm going to go back to Ireland in May. There will be a day, God willing, and if everything comes together, in which I take a one-way trip to Ireland and don't come home.
Not good, eh?
Well, it just fits me. It fits me. I love Australia. I love New Zealand. There are aspects of Scotland, obviously, that matter to me. Certainly, St. Andrews, Noma Golf. Old Tom Morris is on my Mount Rushmore of like people who just matter to me, right? Because of what he did for the game that we play. Community, talk about, I call John Ashworth old John Morris. I mean, like he's in that, Bill Coore, Mike Kaiser. That's probably my Mount Rushmore of people who have impacted my life, watching them and everything. So Ireland to me is where I just, I have my roots there. My great grandfather is from County Clare. I found the old home that he used to farm. So he was a farmer, like I feel like that's where I get my agronomy in me. That's in the DNA, is from my Irish side. Old Michael Boland actually farmed a piece of land, and I saw his old home. And that's probably about 300 yards from Trump Doonbank. So Trump would technically be my neighbor.
No way.
So there's that. Um, it's very funny. Anyway, um, and then, but I love the Irish. I love the culture. I love the crack. They call it. I love everything about Ireland and the Irish, and the Lahinches and the art glasses up in Northern Ireland, and Waterville is really matters to me. There's the Bandon Golf Club. Well, I'll see in May is actually the guy Lord Bennett who developed who he founded the town of Bandon in Oregon and called it Bandon after where he was from in Ireland. So the Bandon Golf
Wow.
Club exists. The town of
I didn't
Bandon
know
in
that.
Ireland exists, and that's how in the late 1800s, Lord Bennett came over and established the town of Bandon, which led to obviously Bandon Dunes, me naming my son Bandon. I've
Yeah.
brought my son at the age of 2 back to the Bandon Golf Club and traced those roots. And there's a whole nother story there that I
Wow.
haven't told yet, but
That's
that's
cool.
that's a cool story. So there's all that, right? That's the connection. Ireland matters. What was the second question?
Golf course, favorite golf course you visited or something like that. I know it's
Yeah,
tough. It's kind of putting you on the spot, right? With what you
no,
do, but
no. The secretariat to me of all of this is the old course, and that has a lot to do with Old Tom, that town, the history. Go there on a Sunday and just walk around. The course is closed. Talk about a park where they happen to play golf. You know, there's kids on bikes riding down the middle of the 18th fairway. There's dogs shitting all over where there's going to play golf the next day. I mean, it's a massive park. Old Tom believed in golf for all. He developed, you know, the championship aspect of the game. He was an agronomist. He was a club maker. He was an architect. So he was the four pillars of the game in one man. Lived to his 80s, outlived all of his kids. His great great granddaughter still lives in the flat overlooking the 18th green. She still works on a little patch of grass that is in the middle of the little garden area, where she has 100 varietals just in this little garden that's probably, I don't know, 5,000 square feet, 4,000 square feet, maybe less, probably
Wow.
no, less. I mean, it's tiny. She still goes over and gets some sand from the beach and top dresses this little plot of grass. And as the story's been told to me, and I'm sure you've heard it, but top dressing we get from old Tom Morris because some guy in a wheelbarrow dumped over some sand that they got off the beach. And, they realized that patch of grass where they dumped the sand, probably making a bunker or something, ended up growing better than the grass around it. So they're like, well, let's put this fucking sand all over the place. And that's how we have top dressing to this day is the minerals and stuff of putting the sand. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
so
by a
that
big
kept
whoopsie.
yeah.
by a big whoopsie.
Yeah.
But it's the old Tom going, hey, this is good. Let's do more of this.
Yeah.
And his I think he's one of 9 superintendents that have ever roamed, that have managed that land. So the old course to me, going out, leaving that town, and then coming back and finding your way, and then just the general architecture of that golf course and how it used to go backwards and now they play forward, like, and the double greens and the drivable fours, and the Tom Weiskopf, very famously went to the old course and fell in love with reachable par fours and had one on every one of his designs. I love Tom Weiskopf designs. Of all the
Oh yeah.
players who have become architects, it's Tom Weiskopf and Ben Crenshaw, obviously in partnership with Bill Cord. I love those guys and their work. It doesn't always translate, right? Good players don't always build good golf courses, but I think that the impact of Old Tom and the old course puts it in a category that can't be touched, and that's why for me that's number one.
Do Do you think if we had more of the mentality and the accessibility of some of our prime golf courses here in the States? I mean, probably a stupid question, but do you think that would help us grow the game if, like we do the European style or the British style, where these top clubs are accessible by the public? I mean, could you imagine someone having the ability to go play Augusta or Oakmont or whatever it may be? Do you think that would help us grow the game here in the States? Or is that even necessary?
I It boggles my mind that more clubs don't supplement their business models with outside play. I know it happens. In some cases, it's happening without us knowing about it. There are a lot of clubs you can join in which you then get access to some of these clubs.
Sure.
It's shot, Pasatiempo is a great model, right? They have shareholders that are essentially the members, and then they have outside play. Pasatiempo's model is very similar to the European UK model of clubs. And Lahinch would be almost very similar, in a way. Pasatiempo. I know Lahinch, you have a membership, they had a bunch of members, but then you have X amount of outside play, Waterville. All those clubs are something similar. I think the ship has kind of sailed here, like on that fantasy that's, I think in some cases, we're talking about that middle 60%. So let's take that middle 60% and divide it in half and say 30% of that is private. Of that 30% that are going to be stressed and pressurized to make moves, one of the things that happened before, and it will happen again, is the deprivatization of some of those failing business models to either go public or to have a hybrid model. That's going to happen by laws of economics.
Sure.
So I think there's no like definitive answer. Would it help if people had more access to Cypress Point? It doesn't matter. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It just more help have more access to Augusta National. It just doesn't matter. It's not going to happen. That membership is a membership for a reason, because they want closed doors. They want that exclusivity and that access. So it's not going to happen. So it doesn't really matter what I think or say as it relates to that.
I thought you would have the pull, Matt. I thought you'd have the pull to be able to wave a magic wand and say,
Yeah.
this Monday, we're all
Yeah.
going to play Augusta National.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
okay.
George Roberts, Charles Schwab. Don't you want a bunch of us assholes?
Come
running
on.
around at your-
That's right. That's right. We get a
Come on,
six pack of Mick Ultra and let's go have some
No.
fun, guys. Come on.
No.
What are we doing?
Those guys have they've worked their asses off. They've gotten to what
Yeah.
they've done. They've done what they've done, and they do what they do, and they do it for a reason. I'm
Yeah.
I'm I don't want to fantasize about the idea that that's going to ever change. And we're talking that's that top 10%.
Yeah. Right.
And then that bottom 10% is always going to be scrappy and trying to make it work at that $35 to $40 green fee or whatever. And then what's going on there in the middle is open for conversation, debate, and change. It's inevitable.
So you mentioned Bandon Dunes and you mentioned naming your son Bandon. Talk about what's so special to you about Bandon Dunes.
Man, I think it's just I just think it's the feeling you get that when you step out of that car, I do it pretty much every time. Park, walk out, the clock there, first tee, Bandon OG. It's always usually late afternoon by the time you get there. Sun's going down, long shadows, rolling humps and bumps, no houses. Everybody's got a smile on their face. I don't care if it's piss and rain sideways or it's 35 degrees. There's that camaraderie that's happening. It feels like you've shown up at your club. Just like Goat Hill Park, it feels like I'm at my club. Bandon Dunes has this feeling like there's a bunch of like-minded people who have been willing to make that trek to get to that destination. They have a common appreciation for golf as it was meant to be, links golf, that type of architecture, minimalist approach to a presentation. There's a reason why that development, which started in the 90s, late 90s, became the number one golf destination, not only in the United States, but you could argue in the world in 20 years. In 20 years, Mike Kaiser doing the opposite of what everybody else was doing, hiring the opposite of everybody else, of who everyone else was hiring, became the number one golf destination in the US and arguably the world in 20 years. One piece at a time, one course at a time, one chunk of lodging at a time, one restaurant at a time, spread out over 20 years. He dominated the sort of the news cycle. 1999, 2001, 2005, 2010, 2012, 2015, 2020. New offering, new course, another excuse, a reason to go back, staying true to sort of that original vision, the Howard McKee, plotting and don't underestimate how critical Howard McKee's piecing together of the infrastructure was. The ease in which you can get a shuttle, walk, park your car, never need it again. That's massive. What other destination is that happening?
Yeah,
With
only
that kind
Disneyland.
of with that kind of ease and efficiency. Do you know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
well, 100%.
So it's that, it's the feeling you get on the 16th tee if you're one of the last groups coming in and the sun's going down on a clear, beautiful evening with, that sunset. It's the putting course and the hoops and hollerings. It's the laughter and fun that's happening around some of those fire pits throughout the property. People spilling out of Howard McKee's, 2 pints too many, hugging their buddy, this is the greatest. It's Shu, the director of Outside Happiness. It's like Ken Nice, I talk about
Yeah.
agronomist and sort of one of the great people roaming the land. It's a lot of the staff, the Jeff Simons and Michael Chupkas and some of the caddies I've had over the years, they're there. They're still there. I every time I go back, I see staff members that I've seen for, you know, 20 plus years of going back there. They take pride in ownership in what they're doing and how they're doing it for that destination. It's a lot of that. It's the memories that are now compounding on top of, year after year over time, and the experiences and the reflections I have of being out there with my uncle. It was his favorite place. He could drive there from Northern California. We drove there early on, watching the development of it. It's those walks to the labyrinth, and reflecting on life and the memories and the moments in that trip, but also the trips that have happened before it. It's all of it.
I'm sold. I need to go visit Bandon. It's something it's
Yeah,
on
I
the
was just
list,
saying,
and
just got
holy
goosebumps, too.
smokes. I'm like thinking about texting my buddies right now.
It is poetry, honestly, if you really start. Mike Kaiser is he's he's the man. Old Tom was the man. John Ashworth is the man. Bill Coore is the man. Ben Crenshaw is the man. I've really loved my time with the Jim Urbinas and the David Kidds and the Justin Mandons and I got there's so many good people roaming around this game, and I can't imagine people who don't have a foot in this pool of golf, right? Like I can't imagine what life's like without the game to get us through the down times and the bad times, but also be there and cultivate the best of times. Because it's done. That's what it's done for me, and I'm grateful. I even having conversations like this with people like yourselves. It's fun. It's enriching. It's connective tissue. You know, it's cool.
It's everything that's good. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Well, we want to be aware of your time here, and we're going a little long. We just wanted to kind of leave it open to you. If there's anything else you want to talk about, anything you need to plug or want to plug, or floor is yours. It's your episode here.
No, I thank you. I enjoyed the conversation. I love that you guys love the game like I love the game, and that, we have mutual, respect for the soul of the game and the aspect of what goes into presenting that experience. So thank you for having me. We do have this docu-series on Pasatiempo coming out that will lead into the Western Intercollegiate that Pasatiempo hosts, that I think is a really cool look at a restoration of a golf course, a meaningful golf course, for a lot of reasons, through the lens of that 16th green, which is a diabolical, multi-tiered green that separates itself from almost every green in golf. And we watch how they transform that in a couple months. So that will be coming out. I had the Fire Pit podcast for a long time. I wasn't able to really figure out a business model around podcasting that I love it. I want to get back to it at some point. But that's on a hiatus right now while I do these sort of in the dirt documentation of Laura Loma, Crazy Mountain Ranch in Montana, and Coral Mountain just came on board as a client, which will be happening in Palm Springs. That's actually Michael Schwab and Graham Culp and these guys, the Merriweather team of people who are putting that together. I'm going to look forward to telling that story. We've already been there once and gotten sort of that first look at what's going on. And then it's ongoing work with things like Youth on Course and telling stories for them. Tish Allen and Roger Steele are two of their ambassadors, and I love working with people like that who are in it for the greater good. Adam Hike is the 42-year-old CEO of Youth on Course. He started there as employee number one as an intern at the age of 21. So he has now given half of his life to trying to make sure golf is affordable for kids.
That's amazing.
I mean, how cool is that, right? I can't wait to do a feature on that. Bruce Baker and the Morton family and some of the other people who are sort of the visionaries behind this. I'm telling that story about how it all came about and why it came about and who's responsible. So this is the kind of stuff that I love to do.
That's fantastic.
All of that can be found at thefirepitproductions.com. We have a website, we have social media channels, but I'm less interested in sort of that day-to-day posting. I'm not a media company anymore. I am a production company. I am working with brands to help tell their stories. I am working with destination. I'm going to Ireland in May for Tourism Ireland and creating some stories around family golf travel. So I still working with Golf Channel. I was on telling a sustainability story about how WM is actually taking our trash and converting into renewable natural gas. I had no idea. That's another one of those holy shit moments. Like, wow, that's really cool. Our trash goes to landfill. They suck the gas out of that landfill and create renewable natural gas. Cool.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
If you need a fourth for that Ireland trip or something, just hit me up. You got my number now. So
my goal is to have a bonfire event in Ireland in 2026. So be looking for that. Be looking for that sign up. Yeah.
Well, I got the email for the Gamble Sands one. That one looks pretty fun in July. So I'm going to see if I can work that into the schedule.
Yeah, I'd love to have you, and I I'll give you the friends and family rate. So
Yeah,
Oh,
perfect.
there you
I,
go.
I got you covered. But we're going to play multiple rounds on the original course, the
Yeah.
Gamble Sands course. Scarecrow is the newest one that Nick Shannon and David Kidd built, and it's going to be epic. If you haven't been to Gamble Sands, mind-boggling. By the way,
No.
Columbia River, it's uh, spectacular. They got a short course, which is fun. They got a putting course, which is epic, and we're going to have short course, putting course, 3 rounds on the big courses. We're going to have a really good gift bag. Lodging is awesome. Food is great. Setting is epic. It's very Bandon-esque in which you're not seeing houses. So that's happening in July. So again, signups for that are
Yeah.
on the firepitproductions.com.
Beautiful.
Awesome.
Yeah, we just had Hunter Cooper on, who was one of the superintendents out there. He kind of gave us the lowdown and talked about the fires out there and all sorts of fun stuff.
Oh,
But yeah,
cool.
yeah. But no,
Yeah.
well, this has been awesome, Matt. We greatly appreciate your time and love catching up, and look forward to doing it again here soon.
Yeah, thanks again, guys. And if you're ever in Southern California, you know where to find me, and let's go play some goat.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Okay, guys.
Thanks a lot for your time today, Matt. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a great weekend.
All right,
Okay,
you
you
too.
too.
We'll see you, Matt. Take care.
And now it's time for another installment of Ask the Agronomist, presented by the Andersons. From tee to green, goal to goal, and shoots to roots, nothing is off limits.
We are back with another question for PhD agronomist Ben Pease. Our question today comes in from Robert Archibald. How do you use fertilizers differently in the shade?
Good question. And I didn't even tell Adam this, but my whole master's thesis was on growing bent grass in the shade.
There
So
you
I know a
go.
little bit about growing grass in the shade. So growing grass or in the shade, fertilizing in the shade requires a little more planning and precision than our full sun fertilization programs. There's mowing changes. We sometimes consider using a plant growth regulator and thinking about overseeding and recovery of those areas as well. But often we're competing with trees for resources. So the trees are also grabbing water and nutrients. So we got potential water or nutrient stress and of course shade stress. So proper fertility is very important in the shade. I would start, if you can, by considering fertilizing the trees through root zone injection to kind of give them a feeding, and then they're not starving the turf for nutrients. But as far as the turf itself is concerned, it's good to use a combination of granular and foliar. So granular is a really good base, just like for out in the sun, full sun areas, but especially in the shade, we like to have a really good base of slow release nitrogen there. So we're not overfeeding, not getting big spikes in growth, because the turf in the shade has pretty low carbohydrate reserves. If we grow turf and shade too fast, it's just going to wither because it's outgrowing its food supply. So that's why we want to focus on some slow release fertilizer in the shade. But then you can supplement it on a very light basis with foliar applications. So, and sometimes that works great. If you're going to spray foliar, you can put in a growth regulator. All my research showed anything you can do to introduce growth regulators to shaded turf always has a benefit. So that can be done right in conjunction with your very light foliar feedings, in between your granular base. So that it's a kind of a mixture of granular and foliar, but you're using the granular for the slow release, and then you're using the liquid for smaller amounts of fertility in between.
So you mentioned growth regulators there. What would be your recommendation for some of those?
So there's a couple that are really popular in turf. It's paclobutrazol or trinexpec ethyl. We seem to have a little better response from trinexpec ethyl, or Primo as some people know it. But so that has some good rates, and there's some good growing degree day things that you can do to help schedule that growth regulator application. And good thing about trinexpec ethyl is we've got granular options and liquid options. So obviously it's more often sprayed, but there is a granular version of trinexpec ethyl called Governor G that if you are wanting to really kind of spot treat And in shaded areas, you can use a granular growth regulator, and that doesn't have any fertility with it. So we're not going to overfeed the turf with another granular application, but we're just adding a granular growth regulator in certain cases. Very nice to spot treat with that. Just get a spreader out, and you're walking your tree shaded areas, and definitely a growth regulator in the shade helps out quite a bit.
That is cool to learn. I've always thought that the growth regulators were liquid, so it's nice to know that there are other options out there.
Oh yeah.
That wraps up another Ask the Agronomist segment featuring Ben Pease from the Andersons. 10 out of 10.
That was great.
I can't believe how much agronomy we got in there too. Like I thought
I
it was
know,
going to
yeah.
be all about Sports Illustrated and Golf Channel and his
yeah,
travels and stuff like that. And he was like, no, we're doing superintendents today. Perfect.
Yeah, no, he's got enough experience with them. So I had a couple questions that I had written down too. I didn't even get to them, but yeah, just the ability. He's been to a lot of different places. He's seen a lot of different things, and obviously very knowledgeable on the business side of it too. So just getting his perspective on what's going on with the game of golf was fantastic.
Yeah. Very well spoken.
Yeah, he's so polished. He's such a
Oh,
professional.
yeah.
Such a professional. But yeah, he sent me the Pasatiempo piece a couple weeks ago as he was talking about some distribution, and I watched it all. It's good. It's very interesting. Yeah, just the 16th green up at Pasatiempo. Just watching that video series, like it's unbelievable. It's got like 4 different tiers. It's freaking massive. Yeah, it's
Sounds daunting.
It's not. It's a green that if you built it today, guys would like, what on earth is this?
Yeah.
But,
I'm not joining that course.
So
You see that green?
Yeah. Yeah, it's nuts. It's really cool. Really cool. But no, that was so good.
Yeah. A guy we could definitely have back on at some point.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I could have gone, again, like all of a sudden I looked up and it's like 3:10. I'm like, hey, so
Yeah.
sorry. All right, dude. Well, I'll get on this and just keep me posted on what you hear from those guys.
Okay. Sounds good, buddy.
All right.
Good job today.
All right, man. Be good. Yeah. Good job.
Okay.
See ya.
Good one. What an unbelievable episode. Thank you so much to Matt Ginella for stopping by, making that one possible. Huge shout out to all of our sponsors for everything that they do for us. You guys that listen to the show and move it around, we cannot thank you enough. Get ready for next week. We got a good one. It's Masters Week, some fun stuff. And we also have a massive giveaway that you guys have been asking about. So keep those real sharp and get ready for Augusta. Going to leave you guys with a little something special today. This is an older recording of Mike McNamee and Boston Levi doing an acoustic version of Thief. And this is one that has always touched me and a lot of people around us and our hockey team and everything that Mike's done for us. It's one of those things, if you have people in your life that are struggling, lend a hand, lend an ear, do what you can. Our lives are tough enough right now trying to deal with everything that we have on our own plate by ourselves. So reach out for help whenever you can and whenever you need it, and make sure you're there for the people around you. So here they are, Boston Levi with Thief.
It's very special that you're here tonight. I do know one gentleman drove here from London, so... yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about, to be honest. So.
Could have got on the bus.
I told my friend not to drive from Ottawa, so... Seems pretty far. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you guys being here. As of right now, this is supposed to be the last song, so we'll see. But this song is probably the one that means the most to me. Through my hockey journey, I had the ability to meet a lot of different people, just from teammates. Obviously, I'm on teams of 20 to 25 people, and you're kind of forced to become friends with them. And I met one gentleman who had been through the ringer just personally and what he was going through in life, and he was at the bottom of the barrel, and yeah, I don't know, he chose to talk to me, which was cool. And this song is kind of about him and just being at wit's end, and yeah, I'm thankful that he's still around, but this is just about going through hard times and making your way through it. The song is called Thief.
In the night you moved and broke me all apart. There was no sign of you but the holes in my cold heart. And I gave my world to you and you dragged me through the dark. Like a thief in the night you played your part. You were the drug, I was the strength behind your grip. I hated the buzz on your hallucinogenic trip. Set myself free and you'd sneak up from behind. I was the monster in my mind. Get out, let me go, 'cause I can't do this anymore. Death was seated on my right, disguised as love and dressed in white, eyes as black as a winter night. Grabbed my hand and pulled me in, said I'd never walk alone again, the beginning of the end. Get out, let me go, 'cause I can't do this anymore. Get out, set me free, I'll be the soul I used to be. And I knelt down on my knees and prayed at the altar for prophecy. Oh, and I screamed at the top of my lungs, I'd never put a hand on a loaded gun. And I swore to God that day, I don't believe there's a better way. Get out, well, let me go, 'cause I can't do this anymore. Get out, set me free, I'll be the soul I used to be. I'll be the soul I used to be. Like a thief in the night you moved and broke me all apart. There was no sign of you but the holes in my cold heart. And I gave my world to you and you dragged me through the dark. But I was the monster from the start.